Welcome back to another episode of Y2K Sports Talk. Today we're going to be going over our biggest winners and losers of Week 11, and as always, our Thursday night predictions. So let's get started.
So to get started with my winners, to start it off, I have the Cowboys. I mean, it is the Raiders, but from what it's worth, I think that this Cowboys defense would have let up over 30 just a few weeks ago without these additions, whether it's through trade or people getting healthy. They look like a very complete football team for the first time all year. George Pickens is doing just as good as ever. Dak Prescott, the offense is doing what it's been doing, but the defense stepped up completely. I liked what I saw from Overshown coming back from a big injury. Revel looked good in the couple of plays he played. Quinton Williams looked fantastic. He looked like himself. Kenny Clark looked like Kenny Clark and Osa both, you could tell, are thriving with Osa being able to take all the attention up. Ezeraku, the rookie, is doing good. Everybody's clicking on that defense right now, and hopefully, for their sake, they can continue to add on to this. And another winner I'd move on to is Tedero McMillan. I mean, he might be the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, before his last week performance, obviously I was saying Emeka is the front runner, but it's going to be up between those two, honestly. McMillan, I mean, because you got to give it into perspective that he's had Bryce Young the entire season, and he's still top seven, top eight in receiving yards in the NFL, which is insane. So you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, which is maybe it could give him the more of the leeway of, well, let's give it to him because look at his situation compared to a Mecca who has Baker Mayfield. So that's why Tedero McMillan is a big winner for me. He was a big reason why they won last week. So I don't really have to say nothing else to that. Moving on, though, I do have the Seahawks defense. Even though they lost in a very close one, they were holding the Rams the entire game. They were just stopping him. They were making Stafford, force passes. They were locking up Devontae Adams, making it to where he had a couple of drops ish. But Sam Darnold throws four interceptions, and you were still keeping the game a one-score game the entire way. It's insane that you can do that, and it shows that this defense will win a Super Bowl. This defense can win against anybody. Because it's like not only is it divisional, which makes it harder, but one of the best offenses in the NFL, and you're stopping them to where it's a one-score game, even though your quarterback has thrown four interceptions, and it's a huge,
Yeah, it
huge.
was 4 extra possessions to the Rams
Yep.
offense at home to the Rams offense, which is top five, and they
Yeah.
still only scored 21 points.
Yeah, dude, like everything was going against them on the road. Your offense has turned the ball over four times, and you're still keeping your composure. You're still keeping that energy. So it shows that if the Seahawks were to go to the Super Bowl, that defense is for real, and that defense will be a huge reason to where if the Seahawks make mistakes, it showed. If they make mistakes in the playoffs, they can still win games because that defense is one of the best. And I think that game right now, it makes me feel like they might be the best, if not maybe second. You do have the Broncos, but I mean, you look at what the Seahawks just did to a very good Rams offense. You have to give them the respect, and they're going to be very for real, and the playoffs are going to be definitely fun this year to watch. But moving on to my losers now, I'm going to have to go with the Lions. I mean, you're only putting up 9 points when your offense is supposed to be one of the best in the NFL. You go from week two, you put up over 50 on the Bears. But then you go to the Eagles, who the secondary has struggled, and it's more on Jared Goff actually. Jared Goff is actually more of the loser. He was missing throws. He wasn't reading certain stuff right, and when he read it right, like I said, he was missing the throws. He was a big reason why the offense wasn't doing good. Gibbs was doing good, but there was a lot of times that Goff made mistakes when we were watching, and we
Yeah,
were just like, it was very noticeable because it happened multiple times throughout the entire game.
pretty sure he
And
went like 14 for 38,
yeah, it was like one of
something
his
like that.
worst games for completion percentage like ever for him. And it just makes no sense how, a weak link of the Eagles defense is their secondary, but you're struggling against it. And I guess I could give a little shout out to the Eagles though, because they've now beat the Packers and the Lions, although it was a very low score games, but their defense has stepped up on both of those teams. But the Lions slash Jared Goff, just big losers to me, and it makes you think, what's going to happen in these playoffs. Anything's going to happen. Like why I said it's going to be very fun. Moving on to my other loser, I have is the Chargers. I mean, it's just pure domination by the Jaguars on every single aspect. You beat the Chargers and you go to beat the Steelers, who look like, that makes you think, oh wow, they just beat a playoff contender. That's somebody they might match up with. Then you get absolutely just destroyed by the Jaguars, who might barely make the playoffs, if not barely miss it. But, the Jaguars defense is good. Chargers O line is horrible. Not a good matchup for that. Herbert, I think, got a little banged up in the game. It's just nothing's going right now for the Chargers. They keep just kind of winning, losing, winning, losing. They're probably going to miss the playoffs. They might barely miss the playoffs around like 8 and 9 ish, because that just kind of seems like how their schedule is going to really fit them of winning, losing, winning, losing. But you know, for them, they're going to have to move on to next year and get healthy, because next year you'll have your two starting tackles who are one of the better tackles in the league. So it's immediately going to be an upgrade. But for this week, I'm going to have them as one of my biggest losers, and that concludes my winners and my losers of week 11.
And to start off with my list, I have big winner Jaguars and loser Chargers at the same time. I mean, you could go really either way with it, but I mean, I had the Chargers winning this game, but I mean, not only did they lose, and with their spot in the AFC, they're not a divisional leader right now, so they're bouncing around in the wild card spots right now of 5, 6, and 7. They got to be locking in. Who knows what the Texans, Chiefs, Ravens, any of those teams could do. So, I mean, not only did they lose the game, but, you know, they lost by 29 points, which is obviously something I didn't expect. So, I mean, for the Jaguars, it's a huge W for them because, I mean, I believe they're seventh right now in the AFC. So that is a huge, huge win for them.
Yeah.
And the Chargers right now, they dropped down to 6. So, I mean, it's not killing them yet. But, when CJ Stroud comes back for the Texans next week, we all know the Chiefs could have a lock in at any second that they just start going on a run. We all know the hunger that they have and the frustration they have with their season.
Yep.
So watch out. The Chargers are slipping. They could fall out of the playoffs. They got to be winning these games. But, losing by this much is unfortunate. It's kind of embarrassing. Um, but with some stats for this game, I had, Justin Herbert didn't even get 100 passing yards that game against the Jags. He went
Only
10 for
completed
18.
10 balls,
Yeah, 10 for 18, 81 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, overall, the O-line has not been there for Justin Herbert. I mean, he was still having some good performances even with his O-line, with all the injuries, but maybe now it's starting to catch up to him because, I mean, he was not accurate. Like I said, he didn't even throw over 100 yards. Only scoring 6 points is not what we're used to seeing from the Chargers. The Chargers' leading rusher was Justin Herbert, who only had 21 rushing yards.
Never got into a rhythm ever.
Yeah, literally from start to finish, pretty much. It was all Jags. They only finished with 42 rushing yards on the day and only finished with 135 total yards. It was just embarrassing all the way around for the Chargers, and the Jaguars pounced on that opportunity. And yeah, like I said, the loss wasn't too costly for the Chargers, but who knows with all these teams in the AFC that can make a run. And, with them being at 6 and the Jaguars being at 7, the Jaguars obviously have that tiebreaker over them right now. So, I mean, I think it's only a 1-game difference between those teams. So, we'll see what happens. But next up, I have a shout out to the Bills. I mean, either the Bills are going to be on my big winner list or big loser list, I feel like, every single week. But it was a huge bounce back win against Tampa after, their embarrassing loss to Miami last week. Josh Allen had an amazing game. He had 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. He had over 300 passing yards. And, the Bills probably aren't going to win the division with the Patriots clicking right now and their easy schedule going forward. But it was a huge quality win against Tampa. We all know Tampa's had, their injuries, but they still put up, 40 plus on Tampa. So overall, great all the way around for the Bills. Much needed at a perfect time. And then for Tampa's sake, I mean, they're still on pace to win the division, so I don't really have, any worry for them, but it definitely is concerning and kind of proves my point from last week about how they definitely, do give me vibes of a team that, they're going to go to the playoffs because they're going to win their division, but they're not going to be able to do anything. And I understand it was the Bills who have been, you don't know what Bills team you're going to get. And, like I said, we all know the Buccaneers injuries, but they've definitely been on a downward slope of play lately that it is definitely concerning. And I still am getting those vibes. Like I said, I know they have their injuries, but overall, the way the team is playing, I mean, their defense isn't really been showing up. Obviously, they've had, some rough opponents the last couple weeks, but overall, Tampa as a team, I feel like they're, slowly but surely declining. I still think they're going to win the division, but like I said, I think they're just giving me more vibes of a team that's not going to do anything when the playoffs arrive. Um, Next up, I have big winner Texans. I mean, they've won 3 out of the last 4 now. With their only loss being to the Broncos by literally 3 points. Uh, you know, CJ Stroud's been out. Obviously, everyone knows that. But with Davis Mills coming in, stepping up, winning the last couple games for them is huge. It's absolutely huge. Their defense is awesome. Their defense is top tier. Definitely what's kept them in the game. But I mean, Davis Mills. I mean, shout out to him because he comes in and the Texans need every win they can get because I mean they're fighting with the Chiefs and the Ravens on the outside looking in right now. So for him to come in, with Stroud out and put up some pretty freaking good performances and getting, like I said, they've won 3 out of the last 4, and then obviously he's played like the last 2, and he's gotten wins for them. That's huge, and he's only got one more start, against Buffalo before Stroud comes back. But I mean, either way, I feel like the Texans but mainly Davis Mills has set Stroud up in a good position when he returns. That Stroud doesn't have to be superhero and come from behind because they're 2 or 3 games under 500. Like right now, I think they're 500 currently, so, that's a great position to be in. And, huge props to them to be playing that way with Stroud out so they can set him up nice when he comes back. They are currently also 8 in the AFC, so that's huge for them. Big winner to the 49ers. I mean, huge win against the Cardinals. I mean, they won by like 20 points.
Yeah.
Once again, is huge after their loss to the Rams. But I mean, it was Brock Purdy's first game back. He went 19 for 26, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, 13 rushes, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown to make it 3 total. George Kittle had 2 touchdowns. Overall, it was a great win by the 49ers. Their defense was their defense was sloppy. Jacoby Brissett had like 450 yards. He had 47 completions, which is a record. But I mean, overall, they still won the game by 20 points. And now the 49ers found themselves back in the playoff picture right now because 49ers are now the 7th seed. And I believe it's the Lions on the outside after their loss to Philly. And with the Niners with their win against the Cardinals this last week, it's now the Niners in and the Lions out. So it was a huge, change and, shift in the NFC playoffs. But I mean, it was a good quality win. They should have won. They did. They won, comfortably. Brock Purdy's back. Everything's rolling for the Niners right now, even with their struggles lately. But something that they can hang their hats on and be happy about. So it was a huge win for them. And then lastly, I have a big winner for the Cowboys. I mean, they haven't had much to be happy about this season, but it was good. It was good to see them after their bye week. After their trades, after the heavy hearts the team's playing with, to come out against the Raiders and put up that performance. Because I mean, like you said, this is a team a few weeks ago that you could say the Raiders would probably score 30 at least on them, but I mean now with the bye week, with these trades, with these people coming back from injury, overall, I mean it was the best Dallas game I've seen this season. Offense was there like it's always been, but this defense for like the first time this season had an outstanding, amazing game. So all the way around, everyone on Dallas, offense, defense, and special teams was amazing. They won, comfortably. So huge for them. Dak Prescott had 4 touchdowns. He even could have had a fifth if it wasn't for a drop, but he still had 4 touchdowns. that game. George Pickens is definitely one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, he's definitely like in his own world right now in Dallas, and they have a long-term receiver, with him going forward. He's hungry. It seems impossible to stop him pretty much is how, you can describe him. Prescott overall, he went 25 for 33 that game, 268, 4 touchdowns. Devontae Williams had almost 100 yards. Pickens went 9 for 144 and a touchdown. Quinnen Williams had 1.5 sacks, a ton of pressures and quarterback hits. Kenny Clark had half a sack. Savon Revel made his debut, and he looked great for the snaps he had. Logan Wilson did good for the most part. Overshown, I mean, he only had a few snaps, but he looked good, and you couldn't tell that he was hurt based on the way he was playing. I mean, he looked smooth. But everyone was clicking for Dallas that game, and even though their playoff chances are really low, they do have a tough schedule moving forward. Who knows what could happen this year? They could make that run, and even if they don't make that run, and they don't end up making the playoffs, this season, they definitely have a lot to look forward to next year, at least with this new defense. I know it's only a 1 game sample against the Raiders, but I mean the way they looked and the way this team is playing, because their offense has always been there. But if their defense truly has figured it out, which they've obviously showed signs with that last game, they have a lot to look forward to next year. So, I mean, that finishes off my big winners and big losers.
So moving into my Thursday night football predictions, I have the Texans making an upset against the Bills, winning 19-16. I have this being a very, very defensive game for both sides. Both offenses are going to be struggling. CJ Stroud not starting again this week. We'll be back next week. But with the Bills, their offensive struggles and the Texans having one of the best defenses in the NFL, that's why I have the Texans upsetting the Bills. And this is why I think the Texans could potentially go on and make a run to go push into the playoffs once they get more healthy. But for this week, I have the Texans upsetting the Bills 19-16.
All right, so for my Thursday night predictions, I also have the Texans pulling off an upset. I have Texans 20 and Bills 17. I mean, this is definitely going to be a huge defensive showing, I believe. I mean, it's crazy because, I mean, the Bills are second in total offensive yards right now, but the Texans are first in their defensive yards allowed, and then the Bills are first in rushing yards per game, but Texans are third on the defensive side with their rushing yards allowed. So overall, I just think it's going to be a good matchup. I mean, you also have the Bills defense, being really good against the pass, only allowing 169 yards per game. And maybe they could, stress out a Davis Mills, with their defense, obviously, in their secondary. But I mean, I think the Texans have much more momentum going on right now than the Bills do. Even though the Bills obviously had their 1 win against Tampa, but I mean the Texans are 3 out of their last 4. They're playing well without their star quarterback. I feel like their momentum is much stronger than the Bills is right now, and I feel like the hunger is more there for Houston. Them being at home is a huge, huge factor. It's why I have the Texans pulling off the upset.
Yep.
Texans being at home with their momentum, with having the one of the best defenses in the league, being first in points per game allowed, only allowing 16 points per game, and then like I said, first in total yards, third in rushing yards, and third in passing yards. And who knows what Bills offense we're gonna get? That's what's is hesitant to make me choose the Texans. But
Yeah.
honestly, with the Bills offense being so inconsistent, you can't really be inconsistent against a team that is top 5 in all the defensive stats and categories. So I think the Bills are going to get overwhelmed. Like I said, I think I only have them scoring like 17 points, like a couple touchdowns, and that's pretty much it. I don't think the Texans offense is going to do too much either, but I know their defense is going to keep them in the game. I know Davis Mills will do enough. So I do have the Texans getting 20, Bills 17. That is my prediction.
All right. Thank you guys for watching, today's video. Hopefully you guys have liked every video we've been putting up. Look out for next week for, another winners and losers video. Look out for our Instagram for any updates of anything. But if you guys like today's video, please like and subscribe and share it with anyone you can. Leave a comment if you will. But thank you guys for watching.